Well, the little red light is flashing. That's a good sign.
I've never done a live on Facebook using this, but I just saw that it's there, so why the heck not, right?
Go for it.
All right, now I'm going to just go pull up those slides here.
Look at you making things happen.
Sorry about that. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is April Cox. I am the owner and founder of Little Labradoodle Publishing. And we typically host work groups to help authors who are just starting with the self-publishing process. And I'm an author of a number of books as well. But today I am so excited to have with us Brian Meeks, who is a author extraordinaire, let's call it that.
Well, thank you.
Author of fiction across 6 genres, which I was surprised and amazed to find out. I discovered you, Brian, just going through your mastering Amazon ads and descriptions, trying to do better with my Amazon listing. So I was thrilled to find out that you have also have other fiction works as well, and
Yes.
I'm highlighting them here. But I'd love to give you a chance to just talk a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself. And
I love talking about myself.
Yeah, then I just have a few little questions of my own to get started, and then we'll just allow everybody else to kind of chime in and do an Ask Me Anything with Brian Meeks today.
That sounds lovely.
Here.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be here. I got started accidentally on January 2nd, 2010. Most authors that I've met, most of my author friends, typically have always been writers. Not always necessarily with the idea of publishing or having books out there, but they wrote stories when they were young. It was something they enjoyed. I never liked writing. I hated writing until January 2nd, 2010, because I had an English teacher in 8th grade, Mrs. Johnson, who was just mean. She beat any possible love of writing I might have had out of me at that time. Well, on January 2nd, I had nothing to do. I was waiting for a football game to kick off because it's, holiday bowl season. The game didn't start till later in that evening, and so I was just on the internet surfing around, and I came across this site called Blogger. I wrote a blog post about my foibles in woodworking and hit post because I'd had this funny day the day before. And so then I continued around the internet, and I found this forum called Lumberjocks, where all of these woodworkers were telling stories, posting pictures of the stuff they had worked on. And so I spent an hour reading. After an hour, I decided I wanted to join the site, put in my information. As soon as I joined, a button came up that said blog. Well, I had already blogged, so I went back to Blogger, got that post because it was about woodworking, put it in the forum, hit publish, and went away. It was time for my football game. I was curious the next day, and when I went back, 300 people had read my blog post. It was kind of a snarky, funny blog post because I was new to the hobby of woodworking, and I was talking about some of the mistakes I'd made. 25 people had left comments, and all the comments were along the lines of, "This is hilarious. I love the post. You need to write more." And it was amazing how that external validation was enough to change my perception on writing. So I started blogging. I blogged every day about woodworking, and which you'll notice Henry Wood detective series, the protagonist is named Henry Wood because my readers were woodworkers. And on July 29th, I wrote the first, I'm sorry, is it possible, do you have headphones? Because I'm getting a feedback loop, so I hear myself talking, coming out of your computer and coming back in. And so listening to myself with a 3-second delay is throwing me off. There you go. Yeah, if there you go, because now I'm not hearing myself. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, I decided, well, I'm going to write about woodworking. Well, on July 29th, I hadn't done any woodworking. The only thing I had done was buy a Bosch 1.25 horsepower router, and that didn't make for a good blog post. Now, for 3 weeks, I had been talking about saving up to buy this router. I was very poor at the time, living well below the poverty line. And so instead of just saying, well, I finally had enough money to buy the router, I wrote the first chapter of a noir detective series, Henry Wood Detective Agency. And in it takes place in 1955. He has this closet that, for whatever reason, things from the future, presents from the future, show up periodically. And on this day, he got this router from, obviously, 2010. And that was just this little side note in this blog post that was intended to be the first chapter of a noir mystery, just to be a blog post. Everyone loved it. So they said, oh, I can't wait for chapter 2. So I started, whenever I didn't have a woodworking post, I would write chapter 2, then 3 and 4. And when September rolled around, I'd finished a novel. By the time I published the first one, I had finished 4 books in the series. And that just got me going. I wrote my first 7 novels as blog posts, one, just periodically, whenever I wanted to do one. Eventually it shifted to where the readers were more interested in watching the novels grow than my woodworking stuff. And so it just kind of became that. That's how I began, was accidentally. It just got into it. And by the time I got done with 7 novels, it changed my mindset, because I never imagined I could write a novel, whereas I could always write 1,000 words. Once I got to 7 novels, I can write a novel. I can sit down and write a novel, and it changed how I work, because it was no longer intimidating. So that's how I got my start. It was a long story, but that's where I began. Oh, and so the next question here, it looks like, is tell us about the new book launch and how are you preparing? Oh, I would love to. It's not even been 24 hours. I have a new epic fantasy series. The series name is Chronicles of the Fifth Kingdom. The first book is called Dragon's Fury. And maybe, I don't know, April, if you go to Amazon and do a search in the Kindle store for Dragon's Fury, I hope it would come up first. It comes up first when I do it, but that may be just me. So the thing that I think is interesting about this series is that I wrote it. Well, I've completed 5 books. I'm in writing the 6th book now. The first book just went live, and the reason I'm doing it is because I want to do research. I want to research rapid release. I want to have a better understanding of ways to succeed wide. And let me see. Okay, so if you click the Kindle store, I think it'll come up first. There we go. And I hope it will. I mean, again, it may be that it's biased because when I'm doing the search, it knows me. That's the second one. There we go. Okay, so not that one. Scroll down. And so there it is, Brian Meeks, Dragon's Fury. Like I say, just went live sometime last night. And so I've decided to write a 10-book epic fantasy series because I want to do research. The research revolves around rapid release. I have already planned out, don't know if you can see this. These are my launch dates for all 10 books. I will tomorrow put up the covers for books 2 and 3. And I have a number of ideas about how to do launch. Many of them fly in the face of conventional wisdom. And so I'm going to test these ideas out and try to prove conclusively with real data whether these ideas work. One of the common misconceptions that people have out there, you'll notice my price, $4.99. Everybody believes you have to launch at 99 cents. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I just don't feel like most people care. I say that, and that's based on some science. Amazon has said, and I've confirmed this, I have over 600,000 clicks through AMS ads, over 100 million impressions, and I also have a degree in economics. Now, most of the folks listening probably don't have a degree in economics, but the realities are people don't really see much of a difference between 99 cents and $4.99. You might have slightly fewer sales at $4.99, but you make 10 times the revenue. And if you're new to this, that's important. I believe, and what I hope to prove, is that there's a bias among authors, especially new authors, in worrying about their books' rank. They are too stressed up. So my book's $197, $890 right now. Well, it's only been up for a few hours. I haven't told anybody that it's live. In fact, you folks are the first ones that I've told it's live. I sent out a tiny blast to a small list, and a couple of those people bought it. So I only have 2 sales. I don't care about that $197, $890. It will go up. It will go down. But what you need to understand is that at any point in the future, through promotions and advertising, that book can be ranked very well. It is less important than people think to have it be ranked great right out of the gate. There are advantages. If you do really well, you can start to get some juice from Amazon. But we're talking launching a book in the top 300 overall and having it stay there for 5 days sort of well. And very few people do that. So one of the things I want to prove to people is that it's okay to launch at $4.99, because how many of you have bought a cup of coffee at Starbucks? A book is a better thing. And most readers don't care. Most authors, because of insecurity or what have you, undervalue their work. And so I hope to prove that they shouldn't do that. And that will be good for the community, because then people can price things correctly. So this is a 10-book launch. This is the first one. If any of you folks read epic fantasy and decide that you just want to give it a read, that's awesome. I would ask, though, if you do, send me a message. And did you just buy it with one click right there? I wasn't hinting, but there you go. Oh, that was very nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, because you did that, and I'm a data guy, so I'm going to go to my thing here, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go there, because I know that sale just happened, and this is going to be April Cox. I'm going to put a timestamp in there, Alt ESV, Alt EST, and so now I have data about that sale, and I know that it didn't happen from my email blast. That is the sort of thing that I do when I'm doing my analytics, so that I can get statistically valid data, which is a problem, I think, in the indie author community, is that the vast majority of authors are listening to advice from people who are guessing. And that can be a bad thing. And so, anyway, can we go back to, everybody's seen my little, my cover, which I think is beautiful. Can we go back to your PowerPoint presentation and see if there's anything else I need to cover on this slide? Okay. Oh, yes, the new, okay, this is actually very important. If you're a new author, the email sequence is absolutely key. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made being an author is I started building a list late, so I didn't get started to that till very, very late in being an author. And then when I did, I didn't reach out to the readers. I only sent them something rarely because, and like most authors, I didn't want to be a bother. This is the worst mistake you can make. And I have a response that I'm going to read from somebody that was on my list. This, and I've got this email back from her 5 hours ago. So I rarely send things out to my list. And I don't know, 8 or 9 hours ago, I sent out a blast. And I told people, I said, you know, it's been a long time since I talked to you. I'm sorry, I haven't done a good job. You joined this list to find out about me, and then I've sent you nothing. And so I apologize. And her response was, too little, too late, Brian, but I hope it's all is well with you. This was a person who subscribed to my list, and I didn't do anything with it. I just had them on the list waiting for the time when I felt, oh, okay, let's tell them about a new book release. I wasn't engaging with my reader, and it put her off. And so now she's not one of my readers. And I don't know how many books of mine she's read. The name's not familiar, but I lost a reader, and your list is valuable. And so with this new list that I'm building for the Epic Fantasy series, I'm building out a 50 email autoresponder campaign. And I'm doing it. It is not a salesy campaign. There's very little sales in it. It's about touching, reaching out to, having those contact points with your fan base so that they know what's going on. They're interested in me as an author. They're interested in what's coming up and where they can find other things, cool maps. I have a map for my kingdom. Where can they find that? Stuff of that nature. And so we all think, oh, I'll get around to it. I'll send them a blast periodically. But life gets in the way and you don't do it. And then all of a sudden, your fan who is nice enough to join your list doesn't want to be on your list anymore. And that's a bad thing. And so I'm going to build out this 50 email sequence, and it's proper copywriting, which I wrote a book about that. That's incredibly important. Most people don't do a great job with their copywriting, or they don't even do copywriting. They write prose in their emails, which does not hook or engage the reader and get them to take action. So with this that I sent out this morning, even though I lost a reader. She doesn't like me anymore. That's kind of sad. But I did a good enough job of the copy that she still reached out to me. And that was valuable information. You know, it just reinforces what I already knew. You have to be on top of your list. You have to engage with them. And so my sequence for this 50 emails is really 10 sets of 5 where there's a couple emails about me. There's an email where I ask about the readers. I find out, I'm going to ask them, what are your favorite epic fantasy movies? Who are your favorite epic fantasy authors? What is your favorite root vegetable? And there will always be questions that are silly and ridiculous. There will probably be questions about guinea pigs because I love guinea pigs. But it should be light. It's not, hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Here's something of mine to read for free. Because even that sometimes is good. Sometimes if you do it too much, it feels like homework. You want it to be light, just that you're constantly having these touch points. The fourth email is going to be where if I put up something, so I will have, these like, hey, I have a new map up, or there's a map in my Facebook group. So go from you're a reader, you're on my list. If you want more of this epic fantasy series, then check out the Facebook group, which gives me another chance to interact with the reader. The whole reason that I'm on this show today is April Cox is in my group. She interacted with a post of mine. We started talking. She mentioned the show. I said I would love to do the show. And so reader interaction is hugely important. And so that's the email sequencing is kind of an advanced topic. If you're new to this, and a lot of, I think the people in this group are, if you're new to it, you don't need to go out 50. But try to write 5 emails and have them programmed in an autoresponder campaign, which if you use MailChimp, most all of them have the ability to do a campaign, and it's where you set it up ahead of time so that if somebody comes into your list today, they will get an email that says, welcome. That's not one of the 5. But then a week later, they'll get one, a week after that, a week after that, a week after that. Some people think the first one should be 3 days out. Maybe that's right. But you get it in there so that a person who joins your list today will have a little bit of contact with you early on. But also if they join your list 3 years and 7 days from now, 5 weeks after that, they'll have contact with you. So it's a way to get known by your new readers in an evergreen fashion. It will always happen, and you don't need to constantly be thinking, I need to blast my list, blast my list, blast my list, because you'll drop the ball like I did, and you'll lose a reader. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why I actually commented on your post was I've been actually experimenting with doing some strings of autoresponders, and I think I only put 5 together, which is okay.
That is fine.
And when I heard you mention that you had actually 50 and it was tied into your launch, I couldn't wait to hear your launch strategy and kind of what you do and what prompted this. And then you're also talking about going wide. So what
Yes.
I loved and what I commented to you was, thank you so much for allowing authors to follow you along in this, because
Absolutely.
you posted that there's an author only area. And if I'm not a fan of this particular type of genre, but as an author, I want to see what you do with those 50. I can join the author only and get the same autoresponder. So I posted that to my author work group and to some other forums. And I said, guys, go follow and see, sometimes the best way to learn is just to experience things from another best-selling author, somebody who's nailed it and been there a lot longer than me. And so I just contacted you saying, thank you. This is awesome that I can actually experience this. And I know it's going to prompt me to grow in a lot in that area. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And the reason I created an authors only list, the authors only list is identical to the reader list. But I didn't want because I have 8,000 authors in one of my groups, I didn't want a whole slew of authors joining the reader list so they could get the emails when they don't read epic fantasy, because that will skew my data. If an author is listening to this and they think, well, maybe I would read a book, that's fine. You can absolutely buy my book. But if you're not an epic fantasy fan who would buy the book and then likely buy all 10 of them as they come out and be excited and want to talk about the dragon and the characters in a group and behave the way just a civilian reader would, then that's why I have the author group. You will still get all of the emails that talk about the launch. So if you turn into a fan, that's fine. It's just you're not skewing the data, which is the point of this whole exercise, is for me to learn what is possible for authors who go wide. I've been wide a couple times. I've with all my other books, I'm exclusive to Amazon. But the least studied area right now is how to launch wide effectively and how to build an audience wide. And these are all the things that I'm going to study. And so I encourage you, maybe you can put up in your group a link to the authors only list if people are interested. There will probably be, like I say, you'll get all 50 emails, and it'll take a year to get all of them because, again, it's done the exact same way as the normal list. But there will also be periodic blasts. And for those that are new, some of this terminology may not be part of your lexicon. And there are two types of emails. There's autoresponders, which is where the computer is just sending it out. It's tracking. You came in on this day. You will get them at these points over the next year. Broadcasts are not part of the sequence. It's when I send out an email that's, hey, today's launch day, or launch day's coming in 3, or hey, check out the new covers or the new cover art for a cover release. Just additional things that you send out periodically. You don't want to overdo that. Obviously, you want to tell people about your launches. But the one additional broadcast that the authors only group will get is I will periodically probably just want to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. These are my numbers. This is how it's going, for good or bad, because right now the common wisdom, the common belief is the most money is to be had by being in Amazon. And if you're new, maybe that's true with KU, page reads, but maybe you have a few books. Maybe you are interested in pursuing customers on iBooks and Nook and Kobo. If that's the case, nobody's really talking about how to do that well. And so I'm going to try it. We don't know if I'll succeed, but that's why the authors are on the list, so I can share with them what has worked, and there will be many things that won't work. But anyway, does that make sense?
I'm just seeing some questions coming in.
Perfect.
Nicole is asking, do you use MailChimp or something else to do this recording and this stream that you do?
Okay, great question on the email service. I started out with MailChimp. This morning, in fact, my old list, the one where I lost the reader. In fact, I've had 2 emails where they said, yeah, I'm not really interested anymore. And so I have lost at least 2 readers. I don't know how many more, but that is in MailChimp. And let's see what open, click. Okay, see, I've gotten 30 unsubscribes from this blast this morning because I haven't, and the most I've ever had, I think, on any other blast I've sent out is maybe 2. But I haven't sent anything to this list in 2 years. And so all of this is done on MailChimp, and it's fine. Now, what I'm using for the new list is a more advanced, frankly, a fair sight, more complex system called ActiveCampaign. I love ActiveCampaign, but I hope to build a list of 40, 50,000 people. And so it's more robust. It's more expensive. I'm not necessarily recommending it to, you said it was Nicole that asked the question. I think MailChimp is the way to go when you're starting out. I just am doing a lot of different things, and I'm running multiple lists and all. So it gives me some flexibility to run the list both as an author and as a researcher. So I would say MailChimp is fine.
And what's the size of your list, and how did you build that list? Do you have any recommendations for authors who are just starting out, and many of which don't have an email list yet, as far as strategies to build one?
Well, yes, absolutely. You want to. Okay, so this is a new thought I have on the strategy of building a list. Typically, the most important point in a series, the series back matter, at the end of book one, you've got your back matter to try to get the author, or not the author, the reader, to go to read book two. I'm now of the belief, and this is, I can't prove this yet, but I now believe it is better to ask for that reader to join your list at the end of book two and not one. Here's my theory on that. And again, I don't have any data yet. This is one of the areas I'm studying. If you have them at the end of book one, trying to get them on your list, the read through from 1 to 2 is always lower than once you get them to 2. Most people will be able to keep them reading 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, whatever, all the way through. You get 90+% read through once you've gotten them to book 2. And so I believe for your list building, at the end of book 2 is where you want to say, hey, I have this reader magnet. Well, you wouldn't use the term reader magnet, but I have this free thing that if you want to go get this side story about Audrey the Dragon or whatever yours would be, then click here and join my reader group, and I will send you that story. Conventional wisdom is do that at the end of book 1 and try to get them. But my thought is they're not as committed to you and your series at the end of book 1 as those who buy book 2. And I don't believe that you're losing out on anything, because if you get 70% of the people that read book 1 to read book 2, that 30% who didn't read it, didn't go on to the next book, they didn't enjoy book 1. They didn't enjoy it enough to want to know how the story continues. Why would they join your list? So I don't think there's any downside to waiting to book 2 to start to try to build that list. Does that make sense?
I have, a number of different strategies also that I use because I don't have multiple releases or multiple novels and books to be able to share yet. So
Sure.
What I've been sharing with some of our group members is to try as soon as possible to start finding out where are your readers and start incenting them, even if it's with downloads of a coloring page or a free ebook or something that can, where you go where your readers are and entice them and try to get them there. And with the hope that you can engage them in such a way that when you do launch your book, it ends up being, it's not launched to crickets. And we're writing children's books, so our group is a group of children's book writers.
Sure.
So I don't know if that strategy works, and would you offer any advice to a children's book author where we don't have that track record or multiple novels or things that are going to be sequential? There may be some out there with a series.
Sure.
I'm writing book 2 in my series, so I'm still very slow at turning this around. And
Sure.
They need some tips on your rapid release strategy.
There you go. Well, it is different for children's and young adults because you're targeting, well, the question is, are you targeting the reader or are you targeting the parent of the reader? And I feel that you kind of need to do both. So if you can offer incentives, like you mentioned, the reader magnets, things that would appeal to the age group that is going to read your book, absolutely. Whether it's another short story, maybe it's a short story where you haven't spent the money to do all the illustrations and all, because if you're going to spend the money on all the illustrations, you might as well put that in a book and have another property for sale, another piece of inventory. But a small, interesting side story that the child would see, hey, yeah, I'd like to get that. That's great. You can also approach it in a way, and this is where I'm thinking about the copywriting, approach it in a way where you're talking to the parent. And the questions you need to ask yourself, what is the parent's motivation? The parent's motivation isn't to find out what happens to Binky the guinea pig. They don't care about Binky the guinea pig. What they care about is Bobby Sue and her developing a love of reading. So if you are trying to get the parent on the list so that they will know about your new releases, maybe the copy is your child will love this additional story, and it will help instill that love of reading. So the copy is trying to touch on the points that matter to that parent. And so for you folks, it's harder doing children's books because I just have to deal with adults and what they're reading. You kind of need to do both. You kind of need to go after the kids, but you don't want to do that too hard as far as, hey, join my list and all. You kind of want the parents to be involved. So the copywriting needs to focus on their wants and needs, which is get my child loving reading. Does that make sense?
I see Rita asked a follow-up question about she's using Wix and the built-in emails that are there because she thinks it's the only one that allows you to attach like a printable coloring page or something like that. Are you aware whether or not any of the other tools like MailChimp or the one you're using allows you to send an attachment as well?
I'm not. Sorry. I don't know the answer to that one. It's a good question. It's the sort of thing that might be worth posting in other groups to see if others have done it. It's a really good question. I just don't know the answer. I've never tried to attach a coloring book page. Sorry.
Okay. Hey, Rita, I'm going to research that. But what I've done with my emails, I have people going to a landing page and downloading, putting their email address, and then I send them an email. Instead of downloading the actual document, I put a link to my Dropbox, and they're able to go there and get, pull something. Or I send them actually to a page that has the list and the links to the Dropbox items, because I want to track, number one, that they subscribed on my first page by putting their email address in. And then I wanted to know how many people actually visit the page and download. And I'm surprised, actually, looking at the data, how few actually do click on the email and go and drop down and download the information. So it's me data collecting too, and I follow that with my Pixel, with the Pixel traffic with Facebook.
And to the point that you just made, when you say how few, what percentage do you see on your report there?
So it's early on, but I would say I had 350 people go in and subscribe or put their email address in to subscribe and download to a free ebook. And that I had 12 people actually go to that page where they're downloading things.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty bad conversion rate. That's what, 1 in 30. That is probably it may be the copy that you're using. There's Nick Stevenson. He's a British author. He has proven that people don't like the word newsletter. They've been asked to subscribe to newsletters over and over and over. He gets 30% better engagement by calling them reader groups. So that's something to think about. It may just be how you're asking the person to click and go get the book. You might be saying, go here to get your book, or you might have a long paragraph and then at the end of it, there's a button to click. I don't know what you're doing on the copywriting, but I can tell you that that's not a great conversion rate. And if whatever method you're using, whether you're using Facebook to run ads to try to get people on your list, which may be more advanced than newer authors would try, or you're just spending your time in these groups trying to cultivate a list, time is valuable as well. The copy needs to be spot on or you'll get a low conversion rate. And so that's something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad I set it up that way so that I could actually see if there was something going wrong. Because
yeah.
At first, when I first set it up, I just set it up so that everything they would just get, go put their email address in, and I was just assuming that they were downloading. So now, but I'm tracking both sides of it. Now I can make some corrections and even test some different landing pages to see if I can get better conversion on some versus others.
Well, a site that I use is called BookFunnel. So when I want to give away something free, I can go to BookFunnel and put the book in there. Well, that's what I did for my beta team for this last book. I had 85 people on it, and BookFunnel is a way to distribute the advanced reader copy easily, where I can send out an email blast and have that link in there. I don't know how that would work for coloring books, but BookFunnel has, you can set it up a lot of different ways. I haven't looked into specifically a coloring page, but I'm 90% sure that would work. And I think they have either a free trial or a very light version. I don't know a lot about that because I just bought the expensive version because I knew I would use it a lot. And Damon, the owner, is a friend of mine, and so I just know it's a great product. That would be something to look into, because it really, if the only reason you're using Wix is because of that attachment feature, and I don't know, for all I know, MailChimp does it too. But if they don't, that may give you some flexibility to go with a more robust email service provider for list management.
Yeah, one comment we just had is I'm confused about the conversion rate. If you already have them signed up for the newsletter, why does it matter whether or not they accept the gift? I would say my short answer to me why it matters is because even though I got their email and they might be a part of my target audience, I'm not building a fan if they're actually not getting the gift, reading to their children, and then wanting to come back for more.
That's exactly right. Well said.
Anyone else have a question that they want to chime in? You can either enter it into the chat, and I can ask it for you, or
Nicholson just said here at the bottom here in the chat. I just saw this chat thing. This person. Okay, well, I don't know how the chat thing works, but Nicholson, BookFunnel has a 30-day free trial. Nicholas N, I think is what it is. So Nicholas just told us that BookFunnel does have a 30-day free trial. It's a wonderful service, and if you're new as an author, it's worth checking out, because the biggest mistake I made was waiting years and years and years before I really took doing a list seriously. So I think that's a good thing to check out. Good job, Nicholas. Here's another. I'm seeing the questions at the bottom of the screen now. From Michelle to everyone, how long should a reader magnet be? Honestly, I have talked with authors who have had success with short stories. Some go as far as to give away entire novels. They want the person on the list badly enough to give away the second book in their series. They maybe have first book free, and then they give away the second with the idea that they'll start to make money on them on the third book, which that seems a little aggressive to me. my reader magnet for my main list, which again, I have pretty much destroyed because I didn't do anything with it. That I have a story that's 7,700 words long, and it's a good story. And so, I had it edited and I made a little cover for it. And so I think it's probably different for children's books because the length of your story, a novel can be 50 to 100,000 words. I don't know how many words are in a children's book. What's a typical?
500 to 650 is typical of, 4 to 8 year old range.
There you go. And so that might be something where, 500, I don't know how long it takes to craft that for that age group, but that's not a huge time commitment compared to a 50,000 word novel. So I would give them an entire story. And that might even be something where, again, I wouldn't spend the money and the time involved to do the illustrations because, maybe one for a cover for it. Because if you're going to go through all the illustrations, then just have another book. But yeah, I would write an entire story about Binky the guinea pig. That is now my new fictitious children's book that I'll be using as an example for the remainder of the hour. Binky the guinea pig. If somebody wants to write that, I will buy it just because I love guinea pigs.
Cool. At least I know it have one sale. There we go.
There you go. Binky the guinea pig.
And all of your followers, you'll put a plug in for Binky the guinea pig.
Exactly.
So that's good. Do we have, let me see, we've got.
Well, yes, there's another question. So it's important to create ebooks for our picture books. I think, kids nowadays, 4-year-olds know how to use technology. I just think you're missing out. Now, the thing about ebooks is if the illustrations are key to the book, it may be a challenge to do it profitably because the file size when you have illustrations in an ebook, it goes up exponentially, and we get charged when an ebook is delivered. We get charged a fee. So the Dragon's Fury that I uploaded is a normal novel size. I get dinged 5 cents every time somebody buys the book. So April just bought a copy and it's already shown up on my report. I should make $3.50, but I only make $3.45. Well, on a children's book, because of the illustrations, it's possible to not have any profit in it. Now, that being said, you might create an ebook version with all the illustrations, an EPUB version just for giving away, because that's you delivering it via a book funnel or something like that, which doesn't cost you anything. That's an area where, honestly, I'm just not an expert, so I can't give a lot of advice on that. But I do think that ignoring the ebook when the children that will be reading it, some of them will have iPads and stuff, that's probably a mistake because kids nowadays know how to do all that stuff. Okay, Michelle?
I would agree with that, and I ended up, I try to do every option out there. I like to try to give people plenty of selection, but the other benefit from putting an ebook out there is when you're listing your print books, you'll have that look inside feature, so that your hardcover and your softcover will also have the look inside feature, and like there are a lot of tablets out there, and I do read a lot to my grandkids from my tablet, so I tend to go ahead and make those available.
Okay, here, Nicholas, Michelle had another comment, and then Nicholas did too. I want to read his really quickly. You only get charged a delivery charge if you take the 70% royalty. You won't get a delivery charge if you select 35%. Well, this is interesting. If we think about the math, now we all know that we get 70% at $2.99. We only get 35% at $2.98. Why would anyone ever publish a book at $2.98? Well, here's the answer. At $2.98, you're only getting 35% of $3, but that's still $1.05. At $2.99 with the delivery charge, you might be making less than $1.05. So you could price it at $2.98 to avoid the delivery charge and end up making more money than at $2.99 where you have the delivery charge. So that's really good to know, because without that delivery charge, that may be the way to do it. And again, I don't know the file sizes. Everyone out there will be different. Michelle said she's preparing a political fantasy trilogy. Besides in email sequences, how else can I use reader magnets? Well, the most common way people use reader magnets is when they're advertising on Facebook to build a list. That is one admittedly expensive method to build a list, but if you can get people on your list at an expense of, say, $1 to $2 per subscriber, and they're opening the free thing, and you build a list where you get, say, 50 to 60% open rate, 20% click-through rate, that's going to be valuable enough, because you will make up the cost of putting those people on the list as you sell books in the series. So I think, if, again, depending on your budget, that's another way to use reader magnets. You can also use them just on your Facebook or social media where you're not paying for anything. Hey, I've got this free story. Check it out. It's the same way that you would do it with a Facebook ad. It just doesn't cost you anything, but of course, you might add 20 to 50 people to your list that way, whereas if you spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, you can add thousands of people. But again, it's all about where you are with your budget at this point in your process.
I saw one other person posting and saying, where can we get that author-only version? I'm going to shameless plug in for my work group, my Facebook group. It's called Advanced Author Collaborative. And it's meant for people who have gone through our 12-week beginner author work group, which I put on at Little Labradoodle Publishing. It's free. It's there because it's my way of giving back to the author community. But people that graduated from that 12-week, we put them into an advanced group. And again, it's still no charge. But I've been putting all of links to all in there with a lot of other valuable things. And you'll get notifications about special events like this as well. So go ahead and request membership to that group. So that's my shameless plug. We've got 5 more minutes to get to the top of the hour. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Brian, kind of to close this out. Well, first of all, will you come back and do more about Amazon ads? Because
absolutely. I mean, this
is really helpful, but I think I could do a whole hour with you just on Amazon ads and specifically tailoring it to
although admittedly, a better person for that show for your audience is Lori Wright. Now, Lori Wright is somebody who came to me back in February of 2017, and she's a brilliant student of mine, and she writes in the same space. And so her knowledge, I may have a greater knowledge of Amazon ads in general, but her knowledge of Amazon ads as it relates to the child middle grade market is vastly better than mine. And so I think, again, I'm happy to come on and talk about Amazon ads, but she is better for your audience. And so reach out to her, tell her I sent you.
She is one of the major mentors and somebody that I look up to very much. I actually am taking a class with her right now. And I do look forward to exploring more with Lori. One final question for you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
If you're since you're the data guru and kind of a little bit of a geek like myself.
I love data. What's
behind the curtain? Tell us a little bit about what's behind, like the Wizard of Oz, right? There's the curtain and we have what we put out there into the world, but we also have like, what are the tools, the things you use? Tell us something that nobody else knows about that, Give us a little teaser of something in the future that we can follow up with you on.
Well, that's, I think what's behind the curtain is, I think we need to talk about the curtain. I think the curtain's the issue. The problem, and I touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the show, is that people get an idea, a theory in their mind. They're not trained data analysts. No point in everyone's education in high school, junior high, in almost every college degree, at no point is analytics taught. It's just not. So we're not taught how to think analytically. I have 7 years experience being a data analyst, and I learned from a genius at Geico, where a 15-minute call could save you 15% on your auto insurance. That's a skill set we don't have. And so what happens is that there are so many rules in the indie publishing game, things that people absolutely believe are the gospel truth. For instance, if you're a romance author, I can only charge $2.99. That's a rule. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. I put up a post in 20 Books to 50K, and in fact, that post is in my book, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, where I talk about pricing of books. And I said this at the beginning. Authors underestimate how much people will pay. So I put up this post on 20 books, and over the next month, 24 people reached out to me on Facebook, and they said, I raised my price. I did what you said. I just wanted to let you know it didn't work. And I said, really? Do you mind showing me the data? And they're like, I would love to have you look at my data. So every one of those 24 people I got on Skype or Facebook, the Facebook video version, and we went through their data. 24 people changed their price from whatever it was up to $4.99. 24 people in their analysis decided it was a failure. And when I went through it, 100% of them were wrong. I can't stress that enough. None of them knew how to do the analysis to determine if the price change was beneficial to them financially. They all did the math wrong. And so the point being is nobody does the math. If you, and that's not really a great behind the curtain question, but I guess I would say that you kind of want to be skeptical and do the tests yourself. And if you don't understand how to come up with a result and know if it worked, then that's where you need to sort of dig. And the realities are every single one of us is much better at pattern recognition and analysis than we know. If you have children and it's 4:30 on a Wednesday afternoon during the school year, you saw the kids come home from school, they're in the house, and suddenly you notice it's really quiet. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't have kids, but I can tell you every parent I've ever talked to said that's a danger sign. Something's going on. The kids are up to something. It's too quiet. That's pattern recognition. And so I guess the first thing I would say is don't undervalue your work. Don't assume that nobody will pay for it. Don't look at what the best authors are doing and mimic them because they're just doing what everybody else was doing. And you've got this mass of authors all doing the same thing. Some of them are succeeding, some of them are failing. But my whole point for this year-long research is to prove that you can charge more, that you don't need to have first book free or 99 cents, that's actually a negative. Because I know from my degree in economics that readers are price inelastic. And with that, I don't need to go into a lecture on what that means, but I know that's true. And knowing that that's true helps me uncover some of these fallacies in the industry. So I guess the one thing behind the scenes I would say is don't panic and worry about, oh, if I raise my price, it's going to ruin my life and no one will ever buy my book. That's so I hope, I don't know, that doesn't sound like a great answer to the question, but it really is important that if somebody says, hey, go do what the person making $1 million a year is doing, do it like them. They're probably making $1 million a year for reasons despite what they're doing. So if you go look at all the top books right now in the top 100, I'm guessing 100% of the top 100 books on Amazon, their description is wrong. 100% of them. There isn't a single one that has proper copywriting. But I know from analytics that a properly copywritten description will convert at 1 in 8 to 1 in 10. All of the ones in the top 100 convert at 1 in 30, maybe 1 in 50 if they're traditionally published. I have mountains of data on that. So if somebody says, hey, go do what the top people are doing, and then you write a description that's a synopsis of your book, you have just copied something that is wrong. And that's a bad thing. So don't do that.
It sounds like what you're saying is we have to be willing to experiment, track what's going on, make changes, tweak things, try things, do some testing like you're doing, and don't make assumptions that the biggest guys out there know what they're doing, or that what they're doing would work for our book. It's
exactly.
Experience.
And the thing that people don't realize is that, first off, there isn't any luck in this game. Everything happens for a reason. I have maybe 12 friends making $100,000 every single month. One of the things they're all doing is rapid release. I think it's pretty clear that that's a good strategy. Most of them have terrible descriptions. Most of them aren't doing their back matter correctly. Most of them aren't doing their autoresponders correctly. So if you follow their description, their back matter, their autoresponder, they're succeeding in spite of those things they're doing wrong. So, but they're doing one thing right. Well, two things. They tell a really good story. They're good writers, and they produce large quantities of books. So they're able to release one every month, 10, 12 months a year, they're releasing a book. And so that, in that aspect, they're hitting it out of the park. And that has been enough to make $10, $15, $25, $50, $100,000 every single month. But my question is, what if they did all the other things right too? And so that's why I'm doing the research. And I think your person had wanted to know where to find that, my email list to sign up, and if they're an author, they don't want to read my book, but they would like to see my autoresponder over the course of next year. Is there, can I maybe get you that link, and then you can put that on your group?
Yeah, I do have the link, and I'll make sure to include it with the replay and with the notes for today. And it sounds like following up with rapid release would be a good topic, and I'll check out other things.
Misty Drive asked, where can we learn how to do better copywriting? Excellent question. I would read Mastering Amazon Descriptions by Brian Meeks, because the book it's about descriptions. But the point of the book is that when you get done, you should have changed your mindset on the way copywriting works. And I encourage you, if you buy the book, to read the whole thing before you start messing with your descriptions. In the book, in addition to 40 descriptions, there's also examples of how I use copywriting for engagement on Facebook. And if you get all the way to the end, hopefully you will understand how to do it on a daily basis. And that's how you get good, is you use copywriting. I use it in everything. When April and I are chatting on Facebook ahead of the show, I'm still writing like a copywriter, not as an author. I'm using copywriting, not prose. I do it on every Facebook post. That's how I've gotten good over the last couple of years.
Do you want to just wrap up by telling people how they can get in touch with you, places they can go to follow you?
Yes. I have two groups on Facebook, Mastering Amazon Descriptions and Mastering Amazon Ads. If you're only going to join one, Mastering Amazon Descriptions is the place to go. And the reason is we encourage people to post their descriptions and get help. What I would say, if you're new to the group and have not read the book yet, while you're reading the book, just be a fly on the wall or try to help other people, because the other way that I've gotten good at writing descriptions is I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I mean, I don't know if I'm up to 1,000 yet, but I've written a lot of descriptions over the last 2 years for other authors, and it's vastly easier to get good at copywriting on a description for someone else's book than yours. And I can't stress this enough. It is vastly easier because you don't have the entire story in your head. You just have the description, the information they gave you on their original description. And usually there's enough tidbits in there that make good hooks that you can deconstruct it and create a new one that is good copywriting from that tiny bit of information. So that's where I would practice, is in my group, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, and then work on other people's as they post them. And once you start to feel comfortable with it, then redo one of your descriptions, put it in the group, and have people help you tweak it. And I'm active in the group. I give feedback as well. So that's where you want to probably go first, is Mastering Amazon Descriptions on Facebook. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but buy Mastering Amazon Descriptions. It's delightful. I'm a wonderful writer.
I love it. And this has been really wonderful knowledge to pass along to the group. I'm so grateful that you took time out of your busy day to do it with me. And we will, I'll follow up with you and see if we can't schedule.
Well, okay, there's one more question that I'd like to, can we pay you to write our descriptions? Yes, I charge $100 a description. I would prefer that everyone read the book first and try to get good at it, because I can't stress this enough. Copywriting is the most important skill you need to succeed as an author. It matters for everything. It matters for your interactions with the community. It matters with your emails. It matters with your description. If you ever see one of my posts in the 20 books to 50K group, I get, my best one ever is over 1,600 likes and loves on a 484 word post, which is long, but it's proper copywriting, so I hook them and keep them engaged. It had over 588 comments, and the comments were shut off after 6 hours.
Wow.
I used to write posts the way everybody does, with giant blocks of text. In that same group, I would get 50 to 100 likes or loves, because, I mean, people know me a little bit. So I get some interaction. But when I switched to copywriting, it immediately jumped to 750. And now I can get up over 1,000 with my copywriting. And that is the proof that it's important. So Misty, yes, I would rewrite a description for you, but I really want you to become good at it too. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. This has been really wonderful. We appreciate it. And I will make this replay available, and I'll share the link with you as well. You're welcome to share it. Thank you, guys. I got a little bit of extra street cred, I was telling you, just for having,
there you go.
having someone of your caliber to join me. So
well, I enjoyed it. I'm sorry I ran a little long, but
I'm glad. I'm glad.
It's important stuff, and I really like teaching this. And honestly, I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours and hours, because there's just the volume of information that people need to know. I mean, it's taken me 9 years to learn all of this. And you talked about behind the scenes stuff, but it's so massive. The quantity of things that I'm going to do for this launch is, I mean, I could talk 4 or 5 hours about the things that I'm going to do. And to know, well, the thing that I hesitate about the behind the scenes stuff, because the things that I'm trying go against conventional wisdom. They've not really been tested. And so I don't like to say, hey, I'm doing this thing, because so many people know who I am and they trust me, they will assume that what I'm saying is, hey, I'm doing this thing and it works. That's not what I'm saying. I'm doing this thing because it might work. I want to find out. But it could be a horrible idea. And so that's why I hesitate to give away too much until I actually can say, yes, I did this and it had this impact and here's the math. So anyway.
I can't wait to follow along. I think it's going to be fantastic. So thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll have more information and all the links coming soon.
Sounds great.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.